407 years ago, our father brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of it, as a final resting place for those who died here, that the nation might live. This we may in all property do, but in a larger sense we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have allowed it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, while it can never forget what they did here. It's rather for us, the living, to stand here. We here be dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they here gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve these dead shall not have died in vain, that the nation shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Analysis of the Gettysburg speech. Why did you elect this speech? I chose this speech because it's a turning point in the United States of America's Civil War. I'm really fond of the 19th century. I think it was objectively an era of technological, social, and intellectual progress for the major part of the known world. And one of these social and intellectual fights was the abolishment of slavery. This speech stands for abolishment, but it's also a return of the key notion in US's history, the idea of a freedom nation. This what makes it a powerful passage. This speech is really short, near 240 words, but it sums the fears and the hopes of Abraham Lincoln in the year 1863. He came to Gettysburg to pay tribute to the fallen Union soldier who fought against Confederate ones. He tried to show that every man who died while fighting for freedom are directly linked to the founding fathers' idea. Besides, he was facing numerous threats, even in the North, so it's not only the speech but also the fact that he, the president, mourned soldiers who were probably farmers or industrial employees. It's symbolic. What rhetorical and linguistic tools are there? First, he uses an historical reference to emphasize with the sacrifice made by these soldiers. Then, he uses a strong citation to mark the importance of why they are engaged in a war. All men are created equal. In order to include the whole population, he points out the idea of a united nation, which contrasted with the Civil War. Then he treats the fallen Northern soldiers like martyrs, saying that they consecrated the floor where they're buried, a kind of hyperbolic vision of sacrifice. Furthermore, to add more weight to his words, he compares the speakers as little unlike the fighters who will mark history. This is ironic, because it's the exact opposite that happened. His speech remained in history, but not the name of his brave man. His last sentence is really well written, because he knows that in a speech the conclusion is the most important part, and this one refers again to the founding fathers. So he looks like the most American of the American citizen. These strong words of G. Hancock, government of the people, by the people, for the people, are used even today by some US's politics. How inspirational is it to you or to the people in general? This speech sounds like a beacon for a lot of US's citizens, remembering them what is their national purpose, even if it's just the one they attribute themselves. I think that if in the middle of a horrible war a politic can impact so much in such a short speech, during a long period of peace, such as today, people should be able to remember what unites them in the same nation instead of always looking for what separates.